You've been taught to stay controlled, to stay calm. This is a different calm. To stay reasonable, to stay safe. And that sounds right. Until you realize something. Safe people don't change anything. They don't move fast. They don't dominate their environment. They don't create pressure. They respond to it. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. You don't need to become reckless. You don't need chaos. But you do need something most people suppress. Intensity. Right now, you have energy, drive, focus, but it's scattered, unstructured, inconsistent. Some days you feel it. You want to act. You want to move. You want to push forward. But then it fades. Because you haven't learned how to direct it. So instead of becoming dangerous, you become unstable. High motivation, low execution. That's not power. That's wasted potential. Dangerous is not emotional. Dangerous is controlled. It's the ability to apply force. Exactly where it matters. Not everywhere. Not randomly. Precisely. And right now, you don't have that precision. You act based on how you feel. When you feel driven, you move. When you don't, you slow down. That inconsistency kills momentum. And without momentum, there is no impact. He who is brave is free. Seneca. Being dangerous means you move regardless. Not because you feel like it. Because you've decided. That's the first shift. You stop relying on emotion. You start relying on structure. Because structure gives you consistency. And consistency builds pressure. Pressure creates results. Right now, you're releasing your energy in small scattered bursts. Checking things. Switching tasks. Starting and stopping. That diffuses your force. So even when you try, it doesn't hit hard. It doesn't move anything. It doesn't create impact. Because force without direction is useless. The obstacle is the way. Marcus Aurelius. You need direction. Clear targets. Clear actions. Clear priorities. Without that, you're just moving, not progressing. Dangerous people don't move randomly. They move with intention. Every action connects. Every step builds on the last. Nothing is wasted. That's why they move faster. Not because they do more. Because they do what matters. There's another layer. Most people avoid pressure. They stay comfortable. They avoid difficult tasks. They delay hard decisions. That keeps them average. Because growth only happens under pressure. And if you avoid pressure, you avoid growth. You stay where you are. You don't become dangerous. You stay manageable, predictable, easy to ignore. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. Dangerous is not loud. It's not about showing strength. It's about applying it. Quietly. Consistently. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to execute. Relentlessly. Without hesitation. Without delay. That's what creates pressure. And pressure changes outcomes. Right now, you're not applying enough pressure. Not because you can't. Because you're not structured. You start. You stop. You shift. You delay. And that breaks momentum. So nothing compounds. Nothing builds. Nothing scales. That's why your results don't match your potential. Not lack of ability. Lack of directed force. And that's what we fix. You don't need more motivation. You need precision. You need structure. You need controlled intensity. Once you have that, everything changes. Your actions become consistent. Your focus sharpens. Your output increases. And people notice. Not because you're louder. Because your results speak. You think something is missing. More discipline, more motivation, more clarity. That's not the issue. You already have enough to move. What's happening is different. You've built patterns that suppress your output. You become what you give your attention to. Epictetus. And right now, your attention is not under control. You don't stay on one thing long enough to apply force. You shift. Constantly. One task. Then another. Then something easier. Then something new. That pattern destroys intensity. Because intensity requires continuity. And you don't have it. You break your own momentum. Over and over. That keeps you in a weak state. Not physically. Mentally. Because your mind never locks in. 1. You protect comfort instead of building pressure. You avoid difficult tasks. Not directly. Subtly. You delay them. You prepare instead of acting. You choose easier work first. It feels productive. It's not. Because the hard task stays open. And as long as it stays open, it drains your focus. So your energy is split. Part of you is working. Part of you is holding tension. That weakens your output. Dangerous people don't avoid pressure. They move toward it. Because pressure builds strength. Avoiding it keeps you small. While we wait for life, life passes. Seneca. 2. You depend on the right mental state. You wait until you feel ready. Clear. Focused. Motivated. And when you don't feel that way, you slow down. That creates inconsistency. Because your state changes constantly. So your output becomes unstable. Some days strong. Some days weak. That's not control. That's reaction. Dangerous people don't rely on state. They rely on execution. They act whether they feel like it or not. That's what builds momentum. 3. You scatter your attention across too many targets. You're doing too much. Not in volume. In direction. Multiple goals. Multiple priorities. Multiple ideas. None of them get full force. So none of them move fast. Your energy is divided. And divided energy produces weak results. Focus is not doing more. It's doing less with intensity. The obstacle is the way. Marcus Aurelius. 4. You interrupt your own progress. Right when momentum starts building. You stop. You check something. You switch tasks. You take a break too early. That interruption resets your focus. So you have to rebuild it again. That takes time. Energy. Effort. So you never reach deep work. You stay on the surface. And surface work doesn't create impact. It maintains movement, not progress. 5. You avoid finishing. You start things, but you don't close them. You leave tasks incomplete. You move on too early. That creates open loops. And open loops create pressure. So your mind stays occupied. Not with action. With unfinished work. That weakens your clarity. Because your attention is divided. Dangerous people finish. They close what they start. That builds momentum. Because completion compounds. 6. You overconsume and underproduce. You take in too much. Content. Information. Ideas. But you don't convert it into action. So your mind becomes heavy. Full. But not effective. Because knowledge without execution creates stagnation. You feel like you're doing something, but nothing moves. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. 7. You avoid sustained effort. You work in short bursts. You start strong. Then you fade. Because your system is not built for endurance. So you never apply force long enough to create change. You touch the task. You don't dominate it. Dangerous people stay. long enough for results to appear, long enough to push through resistance, long enough to separate themselves. 8. You don't trust your own execution. You hesitate. You second guess. You think about doing something instead of doing it. That delay breaks momentum, and repeated hesitation builds doubt. So even when you know what to do, you slow down. That kills intensity, because intensity requires decisiveness. Right now, these patterns are controlling you, not externally. Internally, they limit your output, your focus, your consistency, and as long as they exist, you will not become dangerous. Not because you lack ability, because you're restricting it. But now you see it clearly, and once you see it, you can remove it. Build controlled intensity on demand. Right now, your output depends on how you feel. That ends here. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. You don't wait for intensity. You generate it. Deliberately. Controlled intensity is not emotion. It's directed force. It's the ability to lock your attention, apply pressure, and sustain it until the task is done. No hesitation. No drift. No drop in output. Most people never reach this, because they try to feel their way into action. That's unstable. You build a system. 1. You define a single target. No scattered effort. Before you start, you decide exactly what matters. One task. Clear outcome. Not multiple priorities. Not vague direction. Precision. Because intensity needs a target. Without a target, your energy spreads. And spread energy is weak. When the target is clear, your mind locks in. Everything else becomes irrelevant. This is how focus sharpens instantly. The obstacle is the way. Marcus Aurelius. 2. You remove all interference. No partial attention. You eliminate everything that can break focus. No notifications. No switching. No background input. Nothing competing for attention. Because intensity requires isolation. You're not available. Not to messages. Not to distractions. Only to the task. That separation changes your state immediately. Your mind stops scanning. It stops looking for something else. It commits. Fully. 3. You start immediately. No delay. No preparation loop. No waiting for clarity. You begin. Action creates alignment. Not thinking. The moment you start, your mind organizes around the task. Focus builds through movement, not before it. While we wait for life, life passes. Seneca. 4. You apply pressure early. Most people ease into work. You don't. You start strong. You push immediately, because intensity builds momentum, and momentum makes continuation easier. If you start slow, you stay slow. If you start hard, your system adapts. It rises to the demand. That's how intensity becomes natural. 5. You eliminate internal dialogue. No questioning. No debating. No should I do this? No what if this isn't right? You act. Because internal dialogue slows execution, and hesitation breaks intensity. You already defined the target. Now you execute. Clean. Direct. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. 6. You sustain effort past resistance. This is where most people stop. The moment it gets difficult, they slow down. You don't. You continue. Because resistance is expected. It's not a signal to stop. It's part of the process. And pushing through it is what creates separation. You don't stop when it feels hard. You stop when it's done. That's the difference. 7. You close the task completely. No partial completion. No good enough. You finish. You close the loop. Because completion builds momentum. And momentum compounds. Every finished task strengthens your system. Every unfinished task weakens it. So you finish. Every time. He who is brave is free. Seneca. 8. You repeat without interruption. This is not a one-time state. It's a repeatable system. Target. Isolation. Immediate action. Pressure. Sustained effort. Completion. Again. And again. And again. That repetition builds identity. You don't try to focus. You become someone who operates with intensity. On demand. No reliance on mood. No dependence on motivation. Just execution. At this point, something changes. You don't struggle to start. You don't drift. You don't hesitate. You lock in. Immediately. And once you can do that, your output increases fast. Because now, you're applying force consistently. Not occasionally. That's what makes you dangerous. Not noise. Not emotion. Precision. Consistency. Intensity. Applied exactly where it matters. Right now, you can generate focus. You can apply pressure. You can execute. But only when you choose to. That's not enough. Because the moments you don't choose it are the moments that break your progress. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. You don't switch between modes anymore. There is only one mode. Execution. Not sometimes. Always. This is where identity replaces effort. You don't ask yourself if you're going to act. You already know. That removes hesitation. Because there's no decision to make. You've already made it. 1. You remove choice from action. Most people decide in the moment. Should I do this now? Do I feel ready? Is this the right time? You don't ask those questions. The answer is already defined. If it needs to be done, you do it. Immediately. Because decision-making in the moment creates delay. Delay breaks intensity. So you eliminate it. You act based on structure, not feeling. He who is brave is free. Seneca. Freedom is not choosing when to act. It's being able to act without hesitation. Every time. 2. You standardize your output. Unbroken. Your effort does not depend on the day. You don't have high output days and low output days. You have a standard. And you meet it. Regardless of how you feel. This stabilizes your results. Because consistency compounds. Not intensity alone. Anyone can push hard once. Few can maintain it. That's where separation happens. 3. You eliminate energy leaks. Your system loses power in small ways. Checking things. Switching tasks. Breaking focus. Each one drains energy. So you remove them. Not occasionally. Completely. Because even small leaks reduce intensity. You protect your attention. Relentlessly. Because attention is where your power is. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. If your attention is scattered, your output is weak. If your attention is focused, your output is strong. That's the difference. For you build endurance, not bursts. You don't rely on short pushes. You extend your capacity. Longer focus. Longer execution. Longer pressure. Because sustained effort creates results. Not quick spikes. You train your system to stay locked in. Past the point where you used to stop. That becomes your new baseline. And then you extend it again. That's how intensity becomes natural. 5. You remove emotional interference. You don't adjust based on mood. You don't slow down because something feels difficult. You don't stop because you feel resistance. You continue because your system is not emotional. It's structured, and structure doesn't fluctuate. It holds. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. 6. You reinforce identity daily. You don't rely on memory. You reinforce who you are. Through action. Every day. You execute. You finish. You apply pressure. That repetition builds identity. And identity removes effort. Because now, this is who you are. Not something you try to be. 7. You recover without losing standard. Rest is necessary. But your standard doesn't drop. You don't disappear. You don't break your system. You maintain structure, even at lower intensity, because consistency matters more than spikes. That keeps everything stable. 8. You don't break your own rules. This is final. You don't allow exceptions. Not small ones. Not temporary ones. Because small breaks become patterns. And patterns destroy consistency. So you hold your standard. Every time. No compromise. That's what makes it permanent. At this point, there is no switching on and off. You don't get into focus. You stay in it. You don't build momentum. You maintain it. You don't try to execute. You execute. Always. And that's what makes you dangerous. Not occasional intensity. Constant pressure. Applied every day. Without break. Without hesitation. Without drift. That level of consistency separates you completely. Because most people cannot sustain it. They fluctuate. They slow down. They stop. You don't. And over time, that difference becomes massive. In results. In control. In performance. At this point, you don't struggle to act. You don't wait for the right moment. You don't depend on how you feel. You execute. Consistently. But unstoppable is not just consistency. It's immunity. Nothing interrupts you. Nothing pulls you off course. Nothing slows your output. He who is brave is free. Seneca. Because real freedom is the ability to continue, regardless of pressure. Before, small things would stop you. Distraction, uncertainty, fatigue, doubt. Now, they don't. Because your system is stronger than your environment. That's the difference. You don't react anymore. You operate. And once you reach this level, you don't go back. Because going back would require breaking everything you've built. And you don't do that. 1. You remove every point of failure. Most people have weak points. Moments where they slow down. Situations where they hesitate. Conditions where they stop. You identify those points. Precisely. Where do you lose focus? Where do you delay? Where do you break structure? You remove those gaps. Not gradually. Directly. Because one weak point is enough to break momentum. And you don't allow that. 2. You operate without emotional dependence. You don't rely on feeling good. You don't need motivation. You don't need the right mindset. You act. Because your system runs independently of emotion. That makes you stable. Because emotions fluctuate. But your execution doesn't. That consistency is what makes you difficult to stop. 3. You adapt without slowing down. Things change. Unexpected problems appear. Situations shift. You don't pause. You adjust. Immediately. Because your focus is not rigid. It's controlled. You redirect your effort. Without losing momentum. That keeps you moving. Always. The obstacle is the way. Marcus Aurelius. Obstacles don't slow you. They become part of your path. 4. You maintain forward motion at all times. You don't stop completely, even on low days, even when energy drops. You reduce intensity if needed, but you don't break movement, because stopping resets momentum, and rebuilding momentum is costly. So you keep moving, always. That's how you stay ahead. 5. You trust your execution fully.
No hesitación.
No second guessing.
No constante reevaluación.
You decide. You act. That builds speed. Because hesitation is delay, and delay kills intensity. You remove it completely. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. 6. You close every loop. Nothing stays open.
No unfinished tasks. No delayed decisions.
No unresolved actions. Everything gets handled. That keeps your system clean. No background pressure. No mental noise. Just clarity. And clarity allows speed. 7. You protect your system aggressively. You don't allow disruption. Not from distraction. Not from environment. Not from other people. Because you know the cost. One break creates another. So you protect your focus. Relentlessly. That keeps your output stable. 8. You reinforce this daily without exception. This is not temporary. Not a phase. This is how you operate. Every day.
No version.
Because consistency creates identity. And identity makes it permanent. At this point, there is no version of you that goes back. Because everything that used to stop you has been removed.
No hesitation. No delay. No inconsistency.
Just execution. And that's what makes you unstoppable. Not talent. Not luck. Relentless, controlled action. Applied every day. Without break. Without hesitation. Without drift. That level of consistency puts you in a different category. Because most people can't sustain it. They stop. They slow down. They fall back. You don't. And over time, that difference becomes impossible to ignore. In results. In output. In control. That's the final shift. That's the level. If you made it this far, you already know what to do. So don't stop here. Subscribe to the Unbroken Protocol. And go to the next video. How you can kill overthinking today. Because even with execution, one pattern can still slow your mind down. And once you remove it, your speed becomes absolute. See you in the next video.